Hello and welcome back. All right, today in class, we are going to discuss space. Not that space, but space as it pertains to the elements of design. It is our final element of design. It deals with space, how we use space in the design. I think the best way sometimes to talk about this is I feel like sometimes as intro designers, as you guys are, as you all are, excuse me, is we make everything as big as possible, as close as, like jam. We try to jam everything in and make everything as tight and as big as possible, but we don't think about the space on the page that we need to like guide the eye through the space. And so we leave open spaces and we have spaces that have just text or just images, but we work around that. So it's kind of it's an interesting topic, and I hit on it more and more as we go through. You'll hear me talk about margins and opening up space and like leave a space, like you need a space near the edge, like there needs, like you can't have something touching the edge of your artboard. And we'll get into that actually on Thursday a little bit when I talk about layouts. This will be a big topic then. So let's jump in and start checking out some space. All right. So space and how we work with space, positive and negative space, to me is a known topic. You say positive and negative space, like that. Just if you think of a black and white, it's positive and negative. So positive space refers to the occupied area of where the main objects of the design. Good one is the example of a person in a photograph. The positive space is if you take a picture of a person, let's say standing on the beach, but you're facing the ocean. The positive is them, is the person, is the subject matter, and the background is the sand, the ocean, and the sky. That's the negative space. So if you were to draw like just the person and color in black and then turn everything else white, you would get a better idea of that positive and negative space and how we refer to that. So positive is usually the subject matter. The background is the negative space. So that's how I think about it. And it's a good way just to kind of go forward with that. All right. We can use space to create depth in a piece. So there's foreground. So foreground has your main subject, middle ground, and a background. That's the next step in this idea of positive and negative. It's like putting one in the middle here, but it gives us an area to start to play. You can hide things in the background. You can hide information in the middle ground. Like it's not always everything is foreground information, meaning not everything is the same power. We have to yell at it the same, rate. It deals with hierarchy. If everything is in the foreground, we have too much to look at. It's jarring. So we start to work with foreground, middle ground, and background, and how do we use those to create depth in a piece, create that visual hierarchy to show people where we need to read, how we want to read the piece. So this goes, as I'm talking, this goes way beyond just kind of like this space in the piece. It's dealing with an illusion of items, creating depth. We're working with this idea of what's positive. What do we want people to see first? So there's like a lot of hierarchy and stuff going on in dealing with this. And that also, as we talked about a little bit, and I'll talk about, is then adding space to things. Proximity, that's the next one. So it goes into this proximity and the arrangement of elements in relation to each other affects the perception of space. If I love to talk about it in this term, personal space. When we design, every element that we place into the design, you should think has its own personal space. How close do you want a stranger talking to you? Where's your personal space? Do you want them right up in your face? Do you want to smell that onion breath? Or do you want them a few feet away where you can see them and talk to them, and you get your personal space? I want you at an arm's distance. I want some personal space. That pertains to everything in graphic design. If you have a title on a piece of artwork that you're working on, nothing should be touching that title. You give it some personal space. We want to be able to see that. So that's the proximity. That's the proximity of objects to each other. There's times when we want things touching. Yes, absolutely. But most of the times we want to create spaces. We create spaces in between objects. So if you see here, see how this is spaced out? We have a bold with a little bit of space, and then we have some information with a space and more information with a space. Everything has a space between it. It gives us breathing room. It lets us know, like, oh, I should stop at that portion. Well, I don't have that set up right. And, you know, take a break. It's the spatial relationship that is teaching us how we should read what we're reading. All right. Visual balance. Proper distribution of positive and negative space contributes to the visual balance of a composition. Imbalance is instability. So visual balance, we'll actually talk about balance later on. And that, like, something that is perfectly centered, which is something we do, which is a great starting point for design, is we have things that perfectly balance. Everything is down the middle. We have like a title, and then say we have like some information here, and then we equal the information here. And this is perfectly balanced. It's what's on the left is on the right, and everything kind of is down the middle. We have some more information there. And that is balanced and creates a, you know, a balanced, positive space arrangement. Now, if I take that same little square and I offset stuff, have an image here, maybe have some stuff here, and then over here, we're going to bring in some stuff from the edge, you know, like, and this is asymmetrical balance, and it creates a tension and instability. But the thing is, this is more interesting to look at. So when we look at the balance and the space and the composition and how we use that spatial relationships to create something that would be considered tension or instability, it actually creates a more interesting design in the end, rather than just doing everything right down the middle, which is comfortable and which, you know, I gotta say, all designers start off doing. It's not a big deal. Space can also help create an atmosphere, create a mood. Open versus closed space. If things are too tight, that's closed up. It makes us feel tense. Oh, you know, again, it's that personal space. Like, oh, everything's touching each other. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Is that the way they want it to feel? Or is it open? And I have a piece of information here and a piece of information there and a piece of information there. And it's open and it's free. We can see that. Oh, you know, if I just going to go over here really quickly before we start talking about these names they could have been jammed up as big as possible, stacked on top of each other. But what they did is they separated out and created space in between and around each one of these, which helps with the design. Isolation, using native space strategically can isolate or emphasize specific elements. Right there. You know what I mean? That figure, Tintin and his dog, I don't know, I can't remember the dog's name, are isolated. They are different than everything else. You know, they're in silhouette, but they're separated. And so we can see that, and it sticks out to us. Yeah, space is manipulated to create effective layouts and advertisement. We're going to go over that in a little bit here. Now, creating an illusion of space, and this is kind of like drawing techniques. So There's linear perspective techniques like converging lines and vanishing points. And that's like that's old school drawing, like you draw a horizon and then, like say this was our center point, all lines would converge in that center point, and then like they'd start, and as they get closer to us, these get further away. So we're creating that illusion of space within this, and then I can, if I draw my shape here, it looks like it's within a space. Aerial perspective is different. It's the use of color and contrast to simulate an effect of atmospheric conditions. So what we're talking about there is it's illustrated here as the background goes to the sun, it gets brighter and more washed out. And we do that when you look outside. If you look outside a window, and we're talking about that. As you look further and further into the distance, things get, like, I want to say foggier. They get lighter in color because more atmosphere is disturbing what we see. And so that's what, the aerial view is what we call that. Aerial perspective instead of the linear, where we're using the lightness and darkness of imagery to make that. And this is a mathematical setup to create what we perceive as space. Oh, and this is a fun one. Interactive spaces. This is bigger and bigger. It's talking about just general space and graphic design. Bigger and bigger is you will be designing spaces in your life, within your courses here at MATC. It's not all just flat paper. You will actually be designing spaces, a space that somebody walks into. You can graphic the walls, the ceiling, the floor, like all parts of it, to create a whole interactive space that people go into. Think about museums, science museums, hands-on museums. Those are all interactive spaces in which you enter for a reason, to touch, to view, to see. Not just like a standard art museum where you go in to look at a painting on a wall or a sculpture on a pedestal, but think of those interactive museums that are so much fun to go to, where you get to touch and see and look, and they're all built around that. We do those. I used to do this for marketing. I used to create interactive spaces. I love doing that. It's a lot of fun. Oh. All right, let's look at these. Talk about space. Undo, redo. So the way I love this one is it is so simple, but yet creates this idea of something from nothing, in the sense of, like, we call these buildings. These are just shapes cut out of white. We could say, I cut out these shapes out of this black background. Our minds say these shapes are a city, and the background is the sky. You say night sky. All this is illusion, and it's creating an illusion of a physical space that's not there. And this is a great way to point out, like, how easy it is to trick people into thinking something is not what it is. So, like, oh, you could put boxes, just square boxes. They added details, some other details, and people will be like, oh yeah, it's a cityscape. But, like, it's just ingrained in our memory of that. So we have a positive and negative. I use positive as white, black is negative, foreground, background. And then we have a third. So I would almost like this, you could even step back, that this is undo, redo is foreground, the cityscape is middle ground, and the black sky is background. 1, 2, 3. All of that created with just this little area right here. And then what we do is we pop up. This could even be thought of even more in front. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4 as you go back in distance. Like, this information is up close. And all this is two colors. It's black and white. It's not even what we call two colors. If you want to be real cool about it. The black is the absence of color and white is every color combined, but that's kind of dealing more with light. So it's only really one pigment, which is black. And it created all this depth and understanding from one color and some shapes. Got torn paper? Oh, just make a weird shape. Done. You know, so it doesn't take much. We don't need photos. We don't need fancy stuff to give a sense of many layers and a great space around things. Now, when we talk about space, I'll talk about this, and you'll start hearing me. You can see the edge. I'm going to draw two boxes. One will be the outline of the piece, and the other will be the margin. And I'm going to go to properties. I'm going to remove the fill color to transparent. Okay. So that's the edge of the piece. Now you can see that there's a margin here in which nothing was supposed to save goes past that. So this is a big one. There's a gap between the information and the edge of the page, and that's a margin. Every piece that you see that is professionally done will have a space, a margin around it. And that's so important to start to do and start to think about and look at when you look at these pieces. Like, oh, I see that they never put information close to the edge. And you shall never do that either. All right, Tintin. This is atmospheric space. We got foreground. Tintin and his dog are walking toward us in silhouette with the sun that is far back. And as we can see the atmosphere, we can even see it in these camels. The camels get darker as they kind of get further away from the sun, but that's also going to, I would say, like closer to us in relationship. So we have that going on. You have that with the ship, darker here, lighter here, creating that atmosphere. And then we got it with the airplane too. Lighter the darker. And then and it really creates that like that sense of like, I'm on the world. He's taking over the world. Tintin, you know, walking through it. He's the main. He's also mostly in focus compared to everything else, has a slight blur, slight movement and blur to it. So that also adds to him being the main focus and figure in this atmospheric spatial poster for this movie. And it creates that sense of like grandness. You know, we have this idea of grandness when we see this, like big crashing ship is on fire, like smashing through the water. And then this airplane, you know, everything's on fire. Boy, oh boy. Airplane's on fire going down, but like all that in this atmospheric, and then the solo person and their dog. Very cool. This kind of stuff is very cool and easier to do. Hard to say. I cannot say if this was, you know, this reminds me of like some museum or something like that where they have like this very like, I think it's called brutalist design. And it's like you can walk up these steps or walk in it, or was it a fountain or whatever. And then they created what could be thought of as these, you know, ice, because the A is melting. Definitely it's got a little melting right there. And then so is the T. But are these like real letters? Is it 3D? And they place these within a photograph of this. I'm pretty convinced that this is real. They did a really great job. So I'm convinced that the cement is real, but maybe not the letters. But I used to do stuff. You can inset 3D designs into these areas, add the atmosphere and the shadows. And that's like kind of faking it out. Like the other cool thing about this is the depth that is created is solely sort of created by two tones. It's very just like kind of one tone. And then we have this stark black. And maybe if everything was gray, we wouldn't see it as so depthy as it is. But with these black shadows that they put on, it it really just like, oh, there is a step there. If everything was brightly lit and it didn't have these dark shadows, it wouldn't look as, inviting to be like, I want to step in there. I want to feel the ice from there. And so it's a very cool idea and design that we can get going on when we look at that. Love it. We don't always have to design flat, do we? And I love this piece and the fact that like some of it, I always wish, I've been using this piece for a while, it's melt. We make, I can't read that last one, whatever. And I always love it because what they have going on, if you look at this piece, and it's really cool. One, it's really cool in the sense of like the letters are like 3D and they have nice shadows, and these aren't drop shadows. These are proper shadows. We never use drop shadows. Even though you're taught how to do them, we never use them anymore. These are proper shadows because it's lit from the top and it's got a shadow. And then they did something very cool. And I wish they would have done it to the M, the E, I think the L and a T. So the melt here, and they did it with the M, the T, and the I's, and like this N. But it should have been the letters and the name here that look like they're falling over and about to fall off the page. And I think that would have been a really great design. Because if you look, the color difference is there, and it would have been really neat if they would have thought about that one little extra part. But even this small flat poster, by making the text 3D, it like invites us in a different way than this flat design. Even though this is flat, and we talked about how many layers they were able to create, this just does it in a brand new and totally different way. Love that. Finally, the Black Swan. I just like this for the layering and all like what's foreground, what's background, what's front, what's back. Like you have like this black swan with the red beak pointing down at the name, and that's all in the front. And then you have this wonderful white area. You have some feathers. Well, the feathers are somewhat in the front, but they go behind the text, but they're just white. And then this white shape here, which is like the wing, which leads into her, which she's just behind the black swan, and it creates that nice shape there. And then we have this faded background. So there's I would say at least 4 to 5 steps going in. Like these feathers, 1, swan, 2, person, 3, feathers again, 4, background, 5. So 5 layers working through this and creating, but it's very flat and it's all very subtle, but it creates a space and it keeps us looking, keeps us engaged. This one especially, with everything the eye down, the beak down, this shape follows us in. Everything is pointing. This feather is pointing us to the black swan name. Really great job on that one. Very cool. So that is space, your final element in design. Let's check out your project. We're going to download that just like you would. Open up our folder. This is not zipped. Bring it over. You can just open it in Illustrator. And here we are. Space. 3 matching compositions they should coincide with each other. This is my example. Crowded, open. You can do near, far, and do a positive and negative. You can do, let's just check. I think anything is available here. Any colors, just no photography, but use those compositions to show like kind of like the, positive and negative, even though that's the words I'm using in there. It's one and then the other. Opposites. There we go. The opposite pairings. That's the word I wanted to use. So have some fun. Play around. This is the dead-on simplest one. Of course, when I do these and I want to show examples, I try to do the most base example possible so I don't steal somebody's idea. You know, that's why I do it the way I do it. Like I just did circles here and circles here. Like I want you to be far more creative in doing this, but I don't want to have somebody like look at this and be like, I have this. Oh, he did it. So show me crowded, show me an open, show me near, show me far, and then show me a positive and a negative. 3 pairs of compositions. That's a fun one. That one always comes across well. And then I'll talk about this, just so you know how to say it. It'll make you smarter from here on out. The book assignment, which is kind of about design elements and principles, and it's more about the principles, and it's Gestalt. You say it's called Gestalt Principles, and it's kind of the start of where all this came from. Back teaching in Germany, it's Gestalt Principles, and we will be getting into that, and it's how you use the elements of designs to create. But just so you know how it's said, from here on out now, when you talk to anybody and you can say Gestalt, and they'll be like, oh, that's a designer. They know how to say it. All right. And then our design practice piece. We are on part 1 of the week. So this is an Illustrator file. So we go down, we find it, we download it. I'm going to go to my folder. I'm going to double click on it, right click on it. If you're a PC, extract all, go to that folder. Oh, it's InDesign. Switch them. All right, this one's InDesign. No big deal. Same idea. All right, Paul Rand. We're going to zoom out. Same ideas as before. I'll go through it. What are we missing? What do we have to put in? We go to our layers, and we need to put in, I need to find his photo. So I'll do that first. File, place. Go to my downloads, go to my Paul Rand folder, go to links, PR photo, open. I'm going to drop that right in the corner. Now, again, it's way big. I'm going to make sure I have it selected. I'm going to take the selection tool, just grab it, make sure I'm on it. And then right here, I'm going to go down to 25. That just makes it quicker and easier for me. Then I can zoom in, and I'm going to use the free transform tool. Grab that, hold down shift. Remember, never not hold down shift, and I'm going to make it that big. Then I'm going to go to examples. I'm going to go to file, place. I'm going to grab example 1, hold down shift, click on example 3, hit open. I see that number 3, and I'm going to click, click, click. I'm going to go to my selection tool. I'm going to click and drag all 3 so they're all selected. These I can probably just do 50. Oh, I'll do 50 twice. You just need to get it, you know, so they're on the page for you. And then we're just going to simply move them where they need to be and get them in. Now you'll see there's a problem with one of them. And I'll do this one last. So for the IBM, I'm going to take the free transform tool, hold down shift, drag it up to the correct height. I'm going to go back to the select tool. I'm going to put this in the corner. I'm going to grab the free transform tool, hold down shift, and get this to the exact height. There we are. Now with this piece, as you can see, there's white around it. So all you have to do, it's a 2-part process. I'm just going to click with the direct tool, But now if I pull in from the edge to that edge, I'm cropping the image. This is how you crop an image in InDesign. And I just took the select tool and I'm on it and I'm only moving the edges. And I'm moving them so there's no white left. And there we go. And that cropped the image. And now I need to size it. And I go back to the free transform tool, hold down shift and drag it up and get it to match that size. And that's how you crop the white out of images in InDesign. So for the final parts, I can grab, unlock the rest, pull this over, right? Pull the text in, and pull his name in. And then you can turn off that background. We don't want that fuzzy text back there. And then that is that. I don't know if I can do that. Let's see. I want to check something. All right. So that's that. Then we go to File, Export. And we're going to export as a Adobe Print PDF. I'm going to do it to my downloads. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to check that view PDF after opening is selected. I'm going to go to marks and bleeds and make sure nothing is selected. And I'm going to hit export and boom. Oh, and then I see, what did I do wrong? So I'm going to close that. I had the background on. So I close that. I'm going to go back to my layers. I'm going to turn off that and just do it again. File. See, that's why I always have it set up. And that just needs to replace it. View after opening, export. Perfect. I'm ready to submit that for my assignment. And there you go. Any questions, comments, or concerns for this section of the class? All right, great. I will see you on Thursday. Take care. Bye-bye.